Hello, this is Joe Welinske. I'm the program manager for ConveyUX with the fun task of talking to the many speakers who are going to be at our ConveyUX event coming up in February in Seattle. And I'm pleased to be speaking with Tom Merritt today. Hello, Tom. How are you?
I'm good, Joe. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, yeah, it's a nice day here in Seattle. How are things going with you? Where are you talking to us from?
I'm coming to you from Los Angeles. It's actually fairly warm, which is not unusual.
Well, I've been a follower of you for a long time with your various exploits in tech broadcasting. But for people that may not be familiar with you, why don't you just get a little bit about your background and the things that you're involved with right now?
Sure. Briefly, I come from Tech TV, a television network. I worked at CNET. Before that, I worked at Leo Laporte's Twit network. And these days, I'm independent. So I'm still covering technology, which I've done through all of those in a bunch of different podcasts that I do both in audio and video form. The main one, the most popular one, being the Daily Tech News Show, which does what it says on the tin. It's daily, it's about tech news, and it's a show.
Well, it's a lot of fun to listen in on that every day. I don't catch all of them, but most of them, and it's always a lot of fun. And one of the cool things I think is that you're going to be doing your show live during one part of the conference in addition to your session. So I think that's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, thanks for hooking us up with that. It's always fun to do the show in front of an audience and get that interaction and Q&A and stuff. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, with all the tech stuff that you're always being presented with, I'm sure there's always a lot of interesting things you're thinking about and doing. Are there any things you're particularly interested in right now, either with work or play or whatever?
Sure. One of the things that I do a show about, and I kind of turn everything I'm interested in into a show, so it sort of blends together. But I'm really into cord cutting. So the idea of watching the television shows you want to watch over the internet instead of having a traditional cable service, which a lot of people think of as being a money-saving thing, but I'm more into it for the control over it. So when I want it to not cost as much, I can get rid of services very easily, which, as you know, if you've ever tried to cancel cable, is not nearly as easy in the traditional world.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting seeing how that evolves, and it definitely seems to be going in directions that people are interested in. It just seems like really slow to get there. I
Yeah, everybody's trying to figure out how not to lose money in the transition, but I think pretty much everyone agrees that we're going to get to that place at some point.
when I've like tried to add up, like I'm not a cord cutter. When I add up what the shows would cost me a la carte, the ones I'm interested in, which isn't really that much, it ends up like adding up to more than I pay now. Plus, I like sports, live sports, so that's still a big deal.
Yeah, the way I manage it, I use Hulu, which covers a lot of things that I don't have to buy otherwise. I change my tastes a little bit and say, well, I'm going to watch these original programs from Netflix and Amazon, where I might watch something else in another way. I do HBO Now, which you can get over the internet. And for sports, I do Sling TV, which is a new service over the internet that has ESPN. And then I'll either pay for MLB or NHL, which I'm in the unique position. My favorite teams are not in the city in which I live. So it's easy to pay for those. Whereas because of blackout rules, usually you can't watch your home teams.
Yeah. Well, it's fun to see that evolve. I'm not sure if I'm ever going to end up being a completely able to be a cord cutter, but I'll go whichever way I can get get the content that I want to see in the form that I want to see it. So.
And that's what it's all about, is being able to watch what you want, where you want, when you want it. Sometimes cable is still the best choice for that. It all depends on what you want.
Well, one of the things you're going to be talking about at the conference is related to the Internet of Things, which means a lot of different things to a lot of people, and in some ways hasn't developed really into mainstream consciousness yet. But what are some of the things that you're seeing there, and what are your thoughts about as you start thinking about things for the conference.
Sure. I think one of the most exciting things about talking about this particular section of technology is that by February, it will be entirely different than it is right now. It's already changed since we first talked about this becoming the topic. And I think that's fantastic. That's the kind of feeling you used to get around computers, say in the 80s, and around things like mobile devices back in the late 90s, early 2000s, where nobody's quite figured out where it's going, but you know there's something exciting there. Just today on Daily Tech News Show, we were talking about smart kitchen, and everyone's sort of circling around what is it we actually need from the Internet of Things to help us with eating and cooking and delivering ingredients, and what are the things that are just gimmicky, like smart refrigerators that have never really caught on. So what fascinates me about it is I know there are useful elements there, but trying to figure out how are those useful elements of the Internet of Things going to shake out? What are the ones that we need to identify as the useful elements and the platform that will convince people, yes, okay, that's the iPhone of the Internet of Things. That's the thing that's going to make me want to use it.
Yeah, and like I'm personally I'm really into automotive technology. I like keeping up with cars, and so keeping up with the tech in cars is something I like to keep up with. And that's all about what's going to be the platform, who's going to own the platform. The manufacturers want to keep control, but at the same time, our devices from Apple and Android provide so much great functionality. And then you add in the physical part of it, which is if I go to a dealership, I still can't find anybody who knows anything about that
Well,
kind of
yeah,
technology at all. So
you don't want to have to choose a car based on what brand of smartphone you happen to have at the time, which is unfortunately in some cases a consideration. And when we were shopping for my wife's car the last time, we were saying, look, we want Bluetooth, but it needs to work with Android. And they kept saying, well, why don't you just buy an iPod Touch and then you can play your music? And she's like, well, I might want to do more than that. And no, I don't want to have to buy another device just because I bought this car. So you're right. It's everybody knows what they want out of it. And there's lots of different things. It's not just the entertainment system, but no one, it's kind of like we were talking with cord cutting. No one's quite agreed to provide that platform that makes it easy for the consumer yet.
I tend to run around in circles where people use a lot of tech. Everybody has the latest smartphones, but I was kind of I haven't seen that the Apple Watch had as much of an uptake among my peers as I thought it would. I mean, obviously that it's a new thing, but I'm not quite sure what to make of that wearable yet, and I thought I was going to see more of it within the people that I see than it has.
It feels in some ways like the original iPhone, which not that many people had it. It was limited in what it could do. It was pretty whiz bang in some elements, but not every element. And Trio owners were arguing that they could do more with their Trios back when the iPhone first came out. So the Apple Watch could be like that. I had one, wore it for a month, gave it to the producer on my show to wear, and never missed it. So we ended up giving it away as a prize to one of our listeners. And the one thing I can say I missed was the notification aspect of it. It did ease that a little. It just wasn't easing it $350 worth to me yet. But again, second generation, maybe third generation, there is something there, and maybe they'll figure it out.
Another thing I know you're involved with is gaming, and I'm interested in it at a certain level. My son's interested in it at a much huger level. But I look around at what's going on, and it's just so big in certain groups. And here in Seattle, there was just this last weekend there was a huge arena filled with people just watching competitors and. So I think that whole area is interesting. I'm not really plugged into it. It sounds like you have a lot of fun with it.
Well, yeah, and I'm not even into the esports world nearly as much as the people who go to arenas like that. But I think it is really interesting to watch because the old guard of sports fans sit there and criticize and maybe say, well, why would you go to an arena and just sit there and watch someone else play a video game? Which really isn't that much different than going to an arena and sitting and watching somebody else throw a ball around, especially because you can't really see the people throwing the ball around. You have to look at a big screen anyway. And it's the same impulse, which is, I want to do that really well. So I like watching people who are able to do it really well. And there is a skill involved there. And it's huge. The Esports League just announced drug testing policy, very similar to traditional sport drug testing. You can't have performance enhancers and go into esports now because they've had some problems with that, particularly around things like Adderall, which is an ADHD therapeutic drug, and a lot of people take it because they think it gives them focus and they need that focus. So they're dealing with all of the same issues, scandals and cheating, drug testing, huge arenas filled with people, and those are some negative aspects of it, but it just points to the fact that this is so huge and so popular. It's becoming the next wave of sport for a lot of people.
Well, thanks for spending some time with me to talk about this, and with people that might be interested in ConveyUX. Looking forward to having you here in Seattle, having your show here. Len Peralta is going to be here, and so he'll be participating in the activities as well. So we'll see you in a few months.
Thanks for having me, Joe. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, thanks a lot, Tom. Bye.